Facebook can make their social graph completely available. Like you and me. Imagine we start an NIA book tomorrow. Facebook competitor. This is the problem. So many of the resources that Facebook has that makes that social network operational is that they spend like $5 billion a year on a content moderation, right? So like even if we had the entire social graph, is like, can you imagine? Like, Bilal, you know this, right?
You can barely
like,
moderate a Telegram group.
Yeah, dude, I can barely.
Yo, what the hell was going? Talking of which, what the hell was going? I was on a plane somewhere and I just saw one of you. I'm hoping it was one of you two responded. We are being bombarded by spam.
Oh yeah, it was me. Yeah.
Was that you?
Yeah.
No, buddy, we can't even.
We were being bombarded.
We can't even moderate 1,000 persons if a Telegram group, right? So this is the. So these are the kind of issues that come up in this. Is like, listen, is Google search worse than when Bilal was working there? 100%. This is not a coincidence. Bilal Zaidi leaves Google, the search product goes to shit, right?
Yeah.
This is the problem with monopoly, okay? So like, this is the downside of it.
Welcome to another episode of No Investment Advice. You got Trung Phan, Jack Butcher, Bilal Zaidi. Lads, what's going on? Lots going on this week. Mad, big tech vibes. A little edge of the internet vibes today. Well, let's just tell people what we're talking about. Google stock has been surging. There was an antitrust ruling. We're going to break that down and a few other things that's been happening this year. On the Google side, you got to pump the bags a little. Secondly, we got WorldCoin. We do want to talk about that. Talking of pumping bags, we will also talk about. We should just call it Shill segment, like just include it all in there together. We've previewed it a little bit in the past. WorldCoin was Sam Altman crypto coin that we've talked about a long time ago, but it was one of the biggest bumps in the last couple of days. It's basically doubled in price. So we want to talk about it.
Took a little bit of a bump in the old bathroom.
It took a bump. There we go. There we go. Exactly. Yeah. Also, iPhone is launching. You said in 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
So
yeah. So we're recording. We're gonna
live.
miss. We're gonna miss like whatever the meme moments are, but we all know what the meme moments are. It's that guy in the plaid shirt holding another shirt that looks identical. Everyone knows that meme.
Yeah.
But there are two Apple's benefit. There are some different items coming up, new form factors.
Yeah. Also, we didn't talk about it in the preview of the pod before we started recording, but there was also the tech dinner. By the way, we didn't. Maybe we'll throw that in there just for.
Yeah, we can throw that with
jokes.
the Google antitrust.
There we go. All right, and if we get to it, let's see with time. We want to talk about the Clippers, Steve Ballmer scandal. Trung's favorite. He loves a good scandal, don't you, Trung? So let's start with Google here, mate. What is going on? I did follow the headlines here. There was the antitrust ruling, which we can kind of break down briefly. But I guess to me, the bigger story is Google as a whole. Like, early in the year, I think the kind of story with Google was quite negative. Maybe it was like towards the end of last year. AI was Google's dropping the ball, woke AI, all that sort of stuff. But this year has been very positive. For
Empire Strikes Back, I believe, is what they're saying.
There you go. And just to anchor us in some numbers, as I like to do, Google stock is up 24% year to date.
Unreal.
And that is compared to NASDAQ, which is up about 13%. S&P is up 11%. So it's outperformed. And we've definitely talked about on the pod. I remember saying early in the year about the PE ratio getting very CFA fan on it. It just felt like a reversion to the mean a little bit.
Big numbers in TradFi.
There you go. Yeah. Well, if you're on Reddit, value investing, which obviously I am, boys, that was the darling of the last few months. If you're in the Buffett bogglehead vibe, people been talking about Google for a while because, I mean, like that, but let's just talk about it.
Let me show some context here. Look at this. So here are the top. We looked at something similar with the Balaji talk the other week, but here it is. The top, The top 10 companies in the world. NVIDIA 4 trill, Microsoft 3.7 trill, Apple 3.5 trill, Google now fourth at 2.9 trill, and then 2.5 trill is Amazon. Somebody brought a great point. So shout out to Compound248, Twitter account, friend of the pod. He had a great post. I can't find it here, but he's basically like, okay, Google is the fourth most valuable company in the world at 2.9 billion, up basically a third this year. So start of the year at 2 billion. He's like, well, they kind of have everything that every other company have. They have like their own Apple. So they have Pixel, the Pixel phone. They have their own version of NVIDIA. Like they have TPUs, which are like AI specific tensor processing units, like AI chips. They have
Cloud.
Microsoft. They have a cloud, and they have workspace. And they have a Tesla. They have a Waymo.
Yeah, self-driving
like they
cars.
just have like they have.
Yeah.
I mean, would it be crazy if they're $10 trillion company in the next 10 years? No, it wouldn't. If we're being honest, right? It's like when you look at where Nvidia's at, and then you look at Google, and you're like, these guys have the foundation layer, and they also have the chips and the cloud. Because that's the thing about the cloud. I think their cloud is actually growing faster than Azure's, obviously from a lower base than Azure or AWS. I think AWS is 120 billion run rate a year. Azure's 100 billion for Microsoft, and Google's at 50 billion. But Google might have the best AI workloads coming up because they have their own chip, which these other guys are building, right? Like Amazon has its own chip with Trainium. But yeah, it's crazy, man. It's like Google
And
has
YouTube,
the full,
Trunk, that's obviously
and
the
YouTube.
big
We haven't
that
talked about
we love the
YouTube.
most.
It has its own Netflix. So
There you go.
YouTube's like combo. I mean, Google's combo of things is actually insane. It's pretty a bit. It's a huge deal. That's why it ripped 15% last week. Here's the fast forward TLDR on the Google ruling. Disclaimer: Bilal's former employer. So let's just throw it out there.
Once a week, gotta throw it in.
Once a week.
There we go.
So Google was in 2020. The Department of Justice launched an antitrust case. I mean, there's so many cases against Google right now, but this one specifically that was resolved last week was that Google search was determined to be a monopoly. And they kind of focused on a few things, but the main point is the distribution channels. Google was paying, as we've talked here a million times, they're paying Apple about $20 billion a year to be the default browser on Safari. They're also paying Mozilla about $500 million a year. Dude, do you use Mozilla? I don't use Mozilla, dude.
No, not anymore. I used to before
Used to,
Chrome.
right? No,
Yeah.
same. I did too.
was
It was a
great,
great
Firefox,
browser.
yeah.
Yeah, and the Firefox.
I feel
they're
like
paying-
the newest version of Mozilla is like Brave, though. You know, like
Oh, yeah,
Mozilla
fair.
Firefox was like you use it instead of Internet Explorer. Now, if you're really, I mean, I use Chrome, but but
No,
yeah, go for it.
100%. Well, the point we're bringing up is they also paid Mozilla like $500 million a year. They also paid some Android handset partners to be kind of the default. The whole point was it was determined that these distribution deals were a monopolistic practice, and Chrome was also seen as part of their monopoly in Android. So basically, the judge says, yes, it's a monopoly. So what are we going to do about it? So these were like kind of the remedies that people expected. Not allowing Google to pay Apple and Mozilla anymore, potentially spinning off Android or Chrome. And then the ruling came out last week, and this is why on the evening of the ruling, which is I think last Tuesday, Google pumped 10%, 200 bill. Apple pumped 4%, 100 bill.
Because they're
So-
getting a slice of that, right? Yeah.
So based on the market reaction, you know that people are like, oh, it looks like whatever they thought about Google, they're going to keep letting them do what they're going to keep doing, right? So here was the remedy. So, yeah, they say, yeah, it's a monopolistic practice. However, Mozilla specifically, you're going to punish Mozilla. Mozilla would be out of business without that 500 mil a year from Google. So the judge is looking at this is like, are we going to clap Mozilla and take them out of business by punishing Google? Same with Apple. You know, Apple has its own monopoly issues with the App Store, but the judge is looking at it as like, are we going to take away Apple's like 95% gross profit that they're making off this deal? We're punishing them more than we're punishing Google, right? It's like, we're going to make it so Google doesn't have to pay to be a monopoly. So if you actually looked at the structure of these deals, taking them away was also a bit problematic because you're kind of just punishing these companies for doing and building good products. That's how they looked at it, right? And they didn't have to spin off Chrome, and they didn't have to spin off Android. Here's what Google has to do. Okay, go ahead, Bilal.
I was just going to say, Trump, also, wasn't it? One thing I want to say is the judge was called Meta, right?
Yeah, which is
MEH,
hilarious. Yeah,
Because
and-
when I first read the headline, I thought it was an Indian person writing the headline, and they use that autocorrect, and it's
Yeah.
supposed to be like Meta, META, the biggest competitor.
No, but that was the judge, right?
No, that was the judge, yeah. But
So
that was,
here's what he basically came up
Go on.
with. Here's how he resolved the distribution thing. And, listen, some people think it was a slap on the wrist, but here's what he said. they can keep paying Google, but it can't be exclusive. Okay? So it can no longer be exclusive, and there's a time expiration now. So non-exclusive, and it can't be for more than a year. So, but Apple pumped because people are just looking at it as like, wait, so Apple can still get paid. It just can't be exclusive. You know the lawyers are gonna find a way to make it not exclusive, but really is exclusive, right? Okay, so there's that part of it. The other part of it was that Judge Mehta, who Bilal correctly noted, basically said when the antitrust case was filed in 2020, things changed. What changed between 2020 and 2025? Generative AI, ChatGPT. So the document mentions Perplexity 30 times, OpenAI 30 times, Anthropic 10 times. It's basically saying the market has changed. In 2020, if you had asked a venture capitalist to give you $10 billion to take on Google, they would have laughed in your face, right? Can you imagine going in 2020? Hey man, we're going to raise $10 billion and take on Google. But that's basically what's happened since ChatGPT came out. All of these companies, the AI companies that are raising tens of billions of dollars, Anthropic, OpenAI, XAI, it's effectively to take on Google in the sense of what is Google now? It's an answer machine. That's what these chat interfaces are. So Judge Mehta was like, yeah, man, if I settled this 3 years ago, I probably would have made him spin off Chrome and Android. But I'm looking at it now, and the market has kind of
and it has changed.
resolved itself. It has changed, right? The market has changed.
Yeah.
It's more competitive.
And I'll say, even just, I think a lot of the narrative around the negativity around it from, let's say, a year ago or 6 months ago was, all of us know, right? Like, how much do you use Google search versus ChatGPT or whatever your primary AI tool is, even if it's Gemini. Like, I have some friends who use Gemini because they've got Android phones and they use it primarily over search still. So that has been the big switch. Like, even my parents, like, I always ask people when like my missus, her parents, I'm just checking. I would just like to see the anecdotes. Obviously, that doesn't really show the trend across the board. But I know from myself, man, I'm like not using Google search pretty much. Like, I use GPT primarily. So the interesting thing is, with all of this bump, I still think maybe it could be, maybe we are actually, maybe it isn't a $10 trillion company. Maybe there is all the positive stuff you said.
Yes, boys.
Got it. Router was out.
Google
Don't
Internet.
worry. Google Internet, yeah.
Well, Jack, you're going to laugh. We
Files.
just talked about how Google's going to be a $10 trillion company, but maybe not anymore.
Maybe not.
Maybe not anymore.
Well, I was saying,
Mate,
normally the sentiment is
I
like...
don't know if we had this.
Go on.
I was going to say, sorry, I think I keep interrupting you because this is slow too, but I just keep seeing these promos for cheap Starlinks too. I'm tempted, boys. The little auxiliary setup.
Well,
Just in
Jack,
case, yeah.
Now that you airdropped into this convo, did you guys see what Starlink did yesterday?
No, what happened?
Starlink.
Yeah, rough strokes.
Yeah, so they spent $17 billion to buy a spectrum from EchoStar. So this is huge news, actually. And this actually is relevant to the iPhone conversation. Let's put a pin in that Starlink thing when we talk about iPhone, because it is relevant. So let's just wrap up, Jack. We're just talking about the Google antitrust and what the remedies ended up being. People thought, 2-3 years ago, the case came on 2020, and I was talking to Bilal how, ChatGPT completely changed the course of this case, which is what the judge said. Is like the market, it turned out capitalism sometimes works. It sounds like, ChatGPT is eating away at Google's main business, forced the empire to strike back. So the remedies were less harsh than, the biggest critics would have wanted. Chrome didn't get spun off. Android didn't get spun off. Google's still allowed to pay Apple $20 billion a year. It just can't be exclusive. But here's the key. One thing that did come out, which did change, is Google now has to offer its search data up to competitors. But there are restrictions. Because, again, in antitrust, you have to balance monopolistic behavior. Because remember, it's not illegal to be a monopoly. You're allowed to be a monopoly. I mean, the utilities are regulated monopolies, right? It's like there's one electricity line, there's one cable line, or there's two cable lines. You just have to abide by certain rules. The thing with Google now, okay, search is a monopoly. This is what we're going to force them to do. They can give like quarterly snapshots of their search queries, right? It can be ongoing. Because it's ongoing, you're like, the whole point is like, why would Google keep investing on its infrastructure? It has to give everything away, right? So you can get like a quarterly snapshot. Like Bilal, let me ask Bilal, if you wanted a quarterly snapshot of Google, Like what are you looking at? You're probably looking at search query volumes, click
You saying that
throughs.
as a business, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like this is what they're offering up. So let me tell you
Yeah.
what is being on offer, and I love your thoughts on it. So basically, I think it's once a quarter you get a snapshot of the main searches and the ones that are monetizing well, and then
Oh,
and
the
then
actual
also,
search queries, right? Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
people posting that. Yeah.
exactly. And then the other thing that apparently you can do is if you're a search competitor, like whatever, call it OpenAI now, which is basically search competitor, you can syndicate uh Google's like search algo, but you only get like 40% of it. You don't get the whole caboodle. You get 40% of it, but that's enough for you to kind of like, draw around the lines. What do you think about those? Like, how does that sound to you?
I think it's cool. I don't know how much of a difference it makes, but I want to hear more about. I think the 40% is interesting, but I feel like you can kind of guess the 40%. It's like I think the hard part is getting to the 100%.
The long tail.
Even if you get 70%, that's still great, but I don't know if that'll make that much difference. But yeah, I'd love to hear.
Well, because search is a winner take all. Like if you're you want the best search, right? That's the whole point.
That's
It's
true. Yeah.
I think
exactly.
to your point is like even if you had 80% the same, is like why would me as a consumer go to the guy that's 80? Well, I'm not using Bing, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Like Bing's
But I
probably
guess-
80% is good.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, but I guess it's more if ChatGPT or someone is using that search to make their GPT better. I don't know if equivalent of a search engine for certain queries. Then maybe that could make sense.
No, fair enough, right? So we'll see. Is like let's just stop it at that on that summit. What are your guys' overall take other than the market pumping on the news? Do you find it reasonable, unreasonable? Like we'll give our non-investment advice takes here.
Jack, any thoughts?
No, I've always found the monopoly thing and the antitrust thing is kind of difficult to define in a lot of ways, right? And it seems like in the last year or so, you're going to get the most generous interpretation of monopoly and antitrust.
Oh, you mean with the
That's one way to put
administration,
it.
the current
Political
administration.
environment,
Yeah.
I would say. And then
You know
like,
it
I've been,
when you see it, Jack. You know the old line. Yeah.
and the other thing I was going to reference was like, in the Facebook case, there's like the like leading argument there now that they're not a monopoly is like they're actually not a social media company.
Yeah.
7% of the content you see is from the people you choose to follow, whatever it ends
Yeah.
up being. And yeah, it just feels like the ability to sort of dance around and those definitions is just getting easier and easier. I don't have much more to add other than that. It's
To be fair, the social networking argument is completely true. So we're gonna get a resolution on that one also, by the way. So the one thing I will add is, so there are antitrust cases right now against Apple, Amazon, Facebook, all these big tech ones. But like you said, the current administration probably seems softer on these things. But it looks like the precedent that was set from this Google ruling was that people will allow these quote unquote monopolies to operate, but they might have to chip off a bit of their business for more competition. So that's something to keep an eye on. It's like the thing people have always asked about Facebook is like, you got to make your social graph open. But the thing that people don't understand is this: Facebook can make their social graph completely available. Like you and me, imagine we start an NIA book tomorrow. Facebook competitor. This is the problem. So many of the resources that Facebook has that makes that social network operational is that they spend like $5 billion a year on a content moderation, right? So like even if we had the entire social graph, can you imagine? Like Bilal, you know this,
we
right?
can
It's like,
barely
you guys
moderate
don't-
a Telegram group.
Yeah, dude, like, I can barely.
Yo, what the hell was going? Talking of which, what the hell was going? I was on a plane
we
somewhere
can-
and I just saw one of you. I'm hoping it was one of you two responded. We are being bombarded by spam.
Oh yeah, it was me. Yeah.
Was that you?
Yeah.
No, buddy, we
I
can't
mean,
even.
we were being bombarded.
We can't
to be
even
fair.
moderate 1,000 persons if a Telegram group, right? So, but this is so these are the kind of issues that come up in this. Is like, listen, is Google search worse than when Bilal was working there? 100%. This is not a coincidence. Bilal Zaidi leaves Google, the search product goes to shit, right?
Yeah.
This is the problem with monopoly. Okay, so like this is the downside of it. And maybe we don't actually want AI slop and AI mode and AI overview as a default, but AI mode is probably better than 20 blue links. Okay, but having said that, competition kind of wins out. Jack, to your point also, this case was brought in 2020. Like 5 years later, a lot of things change, right? But anyways, pretty big deal, pretty significant deal. Probably on par with what most people would expect based on the administration, as Jack said. So why don't we zip that up and Bilal,
I'll just do well, Trung. I want to get a 30-second answer from you guys. Bullish or bearish on this on Google, and obviously not investment advice, but from what everything that we've seen, and also given the fact that it's already pumped significantly in the last few weeks.
Oh, dude,
how do you feel about it?
It's like we said at the beginning. It's like it's so bullish, man. It's like this was it. This was the thing that was gonna clap them.
Yeah, fair enough.
They have their own Nvidia. They have their own Amazon Web Services. They have their own Tesla Robotaxi. They have freaking this DeepMind AlphaFold that solved every single, like protein folding problem ever made. The amount of optionality in Google is insane. Just the optionality on it. Not investment advice. Just clearly not investment advice.
I will say the only thing I'd say is I still think that search bar will at some point hit them where there's going to be a chunk of searches that's going to get reported at one earnings call. And if maybe they've already done that, I don't listen to it anymore, but where they're going to say, oh yeah, there was a decrease at some point. That to me is the only part where it could really hit them, because they're going to be fine in all those other areas. But unless they go straight to the AI mode, which someone, I think his name Logan Kilpatrick, signaled the end of an era.
Friend of the pod, by the way, Logan.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's head of Google AI Studios, I believe.
Nice.
Bilal, let me. I know Jack's chomping at the bit here to speak because Trung won't fucking shut up. But Bilal, let me just double up on what you said there, and then I'm gonna hand it off to Jack. The point that you made is so true, though. Even if there's all these other businesses that have great optionality, nothing will ever be as good of a business as Google search, right? It's like the greatest business in the history of capitalism. So even if you survive this competitive threat, you're losing out on whatever this was, a 70% margin business doing like 200 bill a year, still growing 30% a year, something insane, right? So to Bilal's point, that's the issue. You're replacing the greatest business model ever, which may take away some shine.
But I think they're going to still have it, is my final point on that. They're just going to have to put it in AI mode, and OpenAI is hiring people for the same. They're going to have ads, it looks like, right? So I don't think ads are going away. They're going to still be there. It's just they need to act quickly, I think, to make that they need to put it on the table, you know what I mean? And they just need to say, like, this is what we're doing, this is what we're not doing. Because otherwise there will be a shift in people using that. I still think it's early enough that they can still own it completely because they have the distribution for it. That's the only point where I'm hesitant on it. But yeah, that's it on there. Jack, any other thoughts on that before we move on, mate?
Only just a very basic point on the open source AI stuff, like how Android as a analogous example. You make some standard that propagates and just becomes this massive distribution mode over time. It feels like the way they're approaching AI could potentially have that same effect long tail. Right? If they make the best models, the most affordable, integrated in everything, and then, they've done that in the past with these big.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Chrome is the same idea, right? Android. Yeah. Anyway.
Chromium. Yeah. But I guess also, isn't Meta the straight up open source? Like they've got Llama, right?
I don't know what the difference is in terms of
whereas Google, I think, is still Gemini's kind of close, but they maybe the pricing wise and stuff, they're going to be more in between than OpenAI, ironically. But
interesting.
Yeah,
Nano Banana was quite amazing.
I was going to say, did you play with that?
I've seen examples. I haven't gotten into it properly yet, but that is quantum leap.
Looked incredible. What was it for people who didn't see the
I think
videos
it's
and stuff?
I mean, I
Video
believe
model, yeah?
it's just a visual model, and it's just the use cases that it's enabled in the last couple of weeks are mental. Like these persistent character across scenes, zooming in and out, re-stylizing, changing clothes. It's just a highly controllable, very accurate visual model. And I don't know the technical differences or specificity in it, but the outputs excuse me, are incredible.
Trung, did you see this? Yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. I've seen the examples where exactly Jack's saying is like I mean, it's natural language, right? Right, Jack? You like upload an image, ask a natural language thing. Well, here, Jack, let me ask you, is like, again, like since we started this podcast and the Chat GPT moment happened in the Mid Journey, you talked about the example you always bring up, which we love, is you used to do a shoot for I can't remember, a luxury car, maybe Ferrari or Lamborghini, and you went to the forest. It cost 120 grand, right? Now you do these image edits, which are just absolutely out of control. It's like you can take like a cheetah, take a photo of a cheetah, take a photo of a woman in a nice dress, and be like, make the dress look like the cheetah skin, and it perfectly, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's unbelievable. So, Jack, what does this do to the industry you used to be part of? What is your take?
Well, you know what's funny? I still stay in touch with a few people who still work in that world, and it's like a lot of them aren't allowed to touch these things because they're like they haven't cleared their like legal ground on it. Like, oh, we have to have a model that's trained only on images that we have a legal right to use, just because they're like risk tolerance of like minus 10,000. It's just absurd. Like in the example that you quoted,
They
like
put low battery mode on 100% battery on their phone. One of those people.
Yeah, exactly. No, and it's just like I always thought, like when my agency days were coming to a close, I'm like, this industry's cooked, man. It's toast. This stuff, so like Spotify, you can make an e-commerce website in 2 days. Why would you ever hire these guys to do it for $2 million? Like, it never had any relationship to reality or economic truth or any of that stuff. It's just like, civilizational scale LARP, and they will just keep going, mate. If anything like presents itself as something that would like collapse that position or advantage, I'll just ignore it or find a way to like regulate around it. Or it's just like I kind of have. I'm so jaded on it at this point. It's like, or you just multiply the stuff you'll produce for any given brand by 1,000. Like it's still. The relationship remains the same, but the expectations go up, even if you do integrate it, right? Like instead of A/B testing 3 pieces of creative, we're going to do 30,000. And the freneticism of it just goes up.
Yeah. Well, Jack, that kind of reminds me, one of the things I've realized over time, that was that famous quote, like being right too early is indistinguishable.
Same as being wrong.
Same as being wrong, right? And that's the thing here. Like you were seeing all this stuff happening and you're like, well, this is clearly not happening in the future, which you were right about, but it might have been 10 years kind of later down the line. And now you are, I mean, I hope you won't mind me saying this, but yeah, we saw each other last week briefly, right? And you were with your old friend who was on the road with you for that trip. He was a photographer. And so you guys traveled together for like 40 days or something, doing this stuff for Ferrari. And it sounded like you guys were both saying like, well, that's not happening anymore. Like the budgets aren't there same in the same way. It's not that they're completely replacing it with Google VO, obviously, but there's definitely elements where you just, I think it's just the cost curve gets compressed. Like everyone is now having to do it for a cheaper level.
And just like even the example holds before I got into that game where like my first boss was like staying at the Chateau Marmont for 3 months to shoot like 4 photographs, just like living.
Yeah. I don't even know where that place is, but that sounds
what is that, like a G and
that sounds like $1,000 haircut sort of place.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like it's a like very like cult trendy spot in LA where like you move into a suite for months on end as like an advertising executive and do nothing,
Sunset Boulevard, is that what it is?
Yeah. And like that also was all about like courting the client, right? Who you gonna hire in your massive consulting business? You're the client. It's the same way the Vegas like conference circuit runs, right? Like, is anybody going there to learn about a product?
Absolutely not. No.
They're going there to like, do you know what? Just get on the lash, gamble.
Wear the best flower shirt.
Yeah. And
go to the craps table.
Not saying that there's no value in that. They obviously meet people, but the actual value exchange in a lot of these relationships is way more about like status, access, experiences, like let's go play golf, let's go do this, than it is like who's going to design the fastest website, right? Because if you really care about that, you wouldn't hire an agency in the first place. You would like build the ability to do that internally.
So
Yeah.
wait, Jack, are you? Is the summary here though? You're saying that as efficient as it gets, nothing actually changes. Maybe the fees
I
come
think
down
it does.
a bit.
It does, yeah. But it just basically gets like gradually a little bit more miserable for the people
Yeah,
implementing it.
slower than you think. Slower than you think.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think a lot of the time.
Like-
And the billing, would the billing change? Were you doing hourly? Does it go to like results based now? What are your thoughts on
Never.
that?
They'll never do results based because they don't get results.
Well, that's hilarious. Well, it depends what they count as result because if they were like, oh, we made 4 photographs, or
Yeah.
we took 4 photographs, that's your result, but not we sold 1 million cars. You know?
Yeah, if the results are literally, we will give you 10 files.
Yeah.
They might not be good files, but they
Yeah.
will be files.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
this is me painting with a very broad brush. They're obviously very competent people, but like more generally speaking, like the more bloated these things get, the way further you drift from, you don't even have access to the information that tells you whether you're doing a good job or not. You're just making something for some internal manager inside your organization who's interfacing with an internal manager from another organization, and that all the incentives are whacked out for the most part at a certain scale. And that I think is why more broadly, like technology companies have done incredibly well in the last 20 years or so, where it's like they just have full stack talent, top to bottom, build their own products, market their own products. They obviously all still hire agencies now too, but that's like a generation of companies and a way of doing business that just is like incredibly frustrating to be part of, honestly, if you're not at a certain level.
That's the funniest thing on the big company thing, like tech company, even Google. I remember seeing when Google was hiring an agency to run their search ads. I remember and meeting those people. And to be fair, they were like really good at what they did. But I was just always just like, this is so funny. Like they literally own the product. They have insider information, right? Like you see the auction. Obviously you can't use that. That would be a legal problem, obviously. But maybe that's probably why they actually used an agency for that. But I remember just thinking like, man, this is kind of a weird situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's also like personal networks, right? It's like people... I used to work with this person. Who's the best person for the job? Oh, it happens to be my mate.
Yeah, my
really
mate.
Interesting. Yeah. Who should we hire? Oh, my mate is really good. Yeah. Happens a good amount.
Definitely. All right, let's move on, boys. That was a great chat. Let's quickly talk about WorldCoin. Jack brought this up in the group chat. Jack, do you know much about this? Because we did talk about this some time ago. I will pull up the chart on my side anyway. WorldCoin up 100%, 7 days. Trung's dropped off for a second here. Do you remember the premise of what it even was? It was something
I think
about,
it was like incredibly vague when they launched it. It was like, well, maybe used for transactions.
They were scanning eyeballs, no?
Yeah.
What was
no, that like the WorldCoin thing is still like, I think the value prop that they're like broadcasting is this is like human verification in an age of like infinite AI and bots and like the inability to tell whether something's real or not. It's not
theory.
called WorldCoin though, is it? What's it called? The actual thing, or is it?
I think it's WorldCoin. Yeah, let me pull up this one.
Is
second.
the orb thing WorldCoin as well?
Oh, let me.
Or is it just World something else? Anyway,
you're right. You know, attract investment. And sorry, yeah, and just to give that headline as well, since I'm googling it here, Sam Altman's WorldCoin project attracts investment from 8 co-holdings. 8 co-holdings is doing essentially the Michael Saylor model, I guess, on they're going to use WorldCoin instead of Bitcoin. Is that basically accurate?
Yeah.
Treasury company.
I was just going to say the company is called World. So
World,
the World
world.org.
ID, app. Apparently there's a chain they're working on.
Universal proof of human financing, connection of every human. This sounds a little... It's either going to be an absolute world-changing thing or it's going to be something we joke about in the future where it was like community-adjusted EBITDA, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, you know what? Like, there's a few people that I respect that are like, it's legit technology. Obviously, it depends on how it's wielded and what... The early criticism of it was all of this biological data is being fed to this corporation, right? Like you have, and now at least my understanding of it is, please correct me if I'm wrong, anybody listening to this, is that it is provably anonymous. Like they do not store biological information about you. They're able to verify that you're a human and you are unique and you've done it for the first time, and then discard all of the identifiable information after the fact. And the idea, I assume, is like over time. And this is, did we say this is a Sam Altman company? Like,
Yeah.
founded around the same time as OpenAI or a little bit after. And sort of this is the like create the problem and the solution world-class business model, right? Like you create a business that changes the world in such a fashion that you need a solution for the second order effects of the first company you make. So you make this. And then WorldCoin is meant, I think.
I can see on their site, they've got a world ID, anonymous proof of human for the age
Proof
of
of
AI,
humanness.
which goes to Jack, what you said there about, dead internet theory, everything you're seeing on, we can't tell who's real, what's not.
We're like we're in it right now, right? It's like insane.
Exactly.
The Twitter
World
experience.
app, an app that provides simple and easy access to the world. I don't know what that means. World chain, a blockchain designed for real humans. WorldCoin, digital token that distributes ownership of network to every human. That looks like the 4 pillars.
Yeah, I think like the really basic understanding of the coin originally was like, the airdrop mechanism that is used in a lot of crypto projects is like, if you interact with this protocol in a certain way, you'll get an allocation of the coin. And people call it airdrop farming, where you go in and like make 1 million trades and just like automate all this ridiculous activity, which is like, well, I don't know if this perfectly captures the idea, but a Sybil attack. So you want like Sybil resistant drops and allocations to projects. You have to design really clever mechanisms for filtering out bots and automatic and like basically nefarious activity that's trying to claim resources but not being a real user. And this is a way around all of that if it works, right? It's like we only distribute to people who are verifiably human in some way. And then the applications that obviously eventually apply to like, I only trust media from people who are verifiably human, blah, 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 blah. There's like millions of second order effects of being able to solve that problem. Because the internet right now, it does feel like you're just like in a wasteland. Like Twitter specifically is like, this is horrific. And then
Sam Altman made a comment, right? He's like, it feels super body lately. I don't know if he's taking a shot at Elon and X, but he's made a couple comments. He said Reddit and X feels super bot.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
all very AI generated,
Yeah.
which is fun. Like you said, Jack, right? It's like the not to flow shade, but I
Whose fault
interviewed
is it, right?
a
He's the guy.
nightclub owner once who then messed up his ears and then built a filter for your ears because it was,
Yeah.
it was a legit thing. But I'm like, like you said, you're feeding the problem here.
Yeah,
you're
and those
creating the
people-
problem and then feeding them after.
And it's kind of obvious in hindsight that they understand the problem the best. So they're best positioned to like
Good point.
fix it. And then the coin, the speculation on that is like, okay, this will eventually be allocated to the people who did the scan, got themselves into the system in some way, or it becomes a currency within that system. Who knows? But I think yesterday it was announced some company is, doing the
8 code is called, yeah.
the DAT. You boys familiar with that acronym yet?
What is that?
Treasury, but what's DAT stand for?
You could
I'm
guess
assuming.
the DA.
Wrong answers
Digital
only.
asset. Digital asset treasury, mate.
We got to do wrong answers only in that one.
Yeah.
Man. That, is,
And,
that could be bad.
I mean, there's been some funny ones. I remember I sent you boys one 2 weeks ago. It was like, this company just announced it's becoming a Dogecoin digital
Treasury
asset.
company, yeah.
And the chart was horrendous. Just like vertical, like 90-degree line down. And this one, I think there's something so interesting about this because it's like, it was originally received as this like antithetical to crypto, like surveillance. This is the ability to transact freely and be anonymous, and all of these things are most important tenets of sovereign money. And I think their narrative, this is also just taking the narrative from the small like crypto Twitter world, right? As opposed to like they have these stands set up in the mall for people to scan their eyeballs, and they just walk up to it voluntarily, like, scan me. Most people just
Oh
don't.
yeah. I saw a video
How
of this
much?
where people.
How much?
Yeah, it was hard. No, honestly, remember there was a thing we were saying like, who's going to actually do this, and it was such a small reward. It was. Do you know how much it was? It was like
like $10 or something.
$10 or something, and people were doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. My mate, see, I just remember this about uni. I had a friend who used to do those medical trials at university. You know where?
Yeah. Serious.
Yeah, go
No,
in like,
man.
oh, you're going to be in here for 3 days, and you're going to take like 15 of these pills, and you're going to sign this disclaimer.
He's like, I did worse on the weekend anyway,
Exactly.
so fair enough.
And
No, but
yeah,
that's
vast
a
majority-
pretty wild side hustle, man. The health one, I used to do at uni. You know the focus groups. You ever do that?
Oh,
I
nice.
just used to, not like a lot. I did like a couple just for jokes to see how it worked. But to do the health one is pretty mad. Like you're just really putting your life
you're
on the line
young,
for that.
No,
Yeah,
it's
don't
well, the
care.
other one, that one, that does put your life on the line. But the other comparable one was doing what is it, guys? The blood. People that just give tons. I had a buddy that gave blood
Oh, yeah.
once a week to get money to drink. I was like, Jesus, bro. I'm like, is that the blood you want to be giving?
That's true. That's true. I also want to call out that you said 8Co is a treasury company, but also Jack, you see, it's Tom Lee, the guy who's been pumping ETH, right? He's become the
Tom
guy
Lee?
who's
the sailor of Ethereum.
the sailor of Ethereum. He's the guy who's been pumping Ethereum in the last, when it went from 1,700 to almost 5,000, 4,500. He was the guy like buying up a bunch and his company or whatever, doing a treasury company, I guess.
Well, you know, he's got some good CNBC lines. We should collate them and deliver them. But the one I remember is stable coins are crypto's chat GPT moment.
Hey, that's not bad. That's not
Yeah.
bad.
Sounds like
Decent.
top to me, mate. No, I'm joking. No, I'm joking. I'm
We
just
got Fiat
being,
fan nodding.
Not
That's
Fiat
what you.
fan, there you
That
go.
looks like exit liquidity right
I'm
there.
just hating there, mate. I'm hating on that.
Yeah, fans naughty. Exit
there-
liquidity.
There's your indicator. Also, while we're on the call, boys, did you just see? This is all over my feed right now. Trung, in your world, old world here, Cantor Fitzgerald. Do you see this?
Well, what are they up
Which
to?
is owned by
Howard
Howard Lutnick, right? Who's
Yeah.
obviously involved with the
Commerce
current-
Secretary.
and Jack
Exactly.
Mallers, right?
Yeah, well, is Brandon Lutnick his son?
yeah.
He's
What
chairman of
happened?
Cantor. They announced a gold-backed Bitcoin fund was coming, and now that's being announced properly today or something like that. Which is kind of, I don't even know what that
Gold-backed
fully
Bitcoin.
means.
What does that even mean? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think it's to do with
There's a big
protecting-
triangle that will explain
Yeah,
it for you. Bilal.
yeah. There will be another triangle slide. Anyway, we won't have time to talk about gold this call, boys, but also a bit of a mad. Well, I sent a few of those charts to you. Up 37% this year, record-breaking levels. And
No investment advice. No investment advice.
definitely no investment. No, definitely not. And but yeah, all jokes aside though, it is kind of related to what we talk about: devaluation, fiat, all the things and money printing. But interestingly, this year Bitcoin has been up, but interestingly, gold is where people for a long time go to when things are not in good shape. So yeah, I'd love to do that another time to get Trunk's take on this as well. Anything else on that, lads, before we wrap up with iPhone launch?
Yeah, hilarious on the WorldCoin, not investment advice, but edge of the internet. So there's
Definitely.
that, right?
Yeah.
But,
And disclose
let's-
I own a tiny amount, not enough to make me a rich man, but just in case it goes up in the future. But go ahead, Trung.
Yeah, I was
iPhone
just gonna
launch.
show you guys. The live stream started right now. So first thing I'm gonna say is I'm actually on the event to see if there's anything of note, but nothing hit just yet. Dude, I'll tell you what the sad thing is. Man, these live streams used to be live. Now they're all pre-recorded for Apple, right? It's just like, man, there's no Riz left. So
Used to be that Steve Jobs moment, right? Like you'd be waiting for it. Yeah.
So I'll just highlight two things because these leaks are so crazy now. The leaks come fast and furious. I don't know how much they're like feeding the leaks themselves. So here's the funny one how Jack knew was coming out. This is the back of every iPhone Pro Max since number 11. I mean, it just looks identical at this point, right? I'm sure the camera's been better, the chip's probably better inside. They spent $100 billion R&D in the last 5 years. And the thing we didn't even talk about with Google, the settlement they did with the DOJ was so Apple keeps getting 20 billion from Google, it's even less reason to innovate, right? Like they're not even gonna even bother with building their own foundation model for AI. They're actually probably gonna just stick Gemini into the iPhone, which honestly might be a good resolution if we're being honest at this point.
Be great.
But
That would be great to have.
that would be great, right? So just top level, this year the main thing is they're releasing an iPhone Air. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on this. So the next 3 years, I made fun of them for dropping 100 billion RD, but they actually have a new roadmap if you check it out. I love your thoughts on this, guys. So for the listeners, these are the next 3 years of
Is
the
this a
iPhone.
joke? Or no?
No, this is for real. No, it's for real. It's for real.
I can't tell anymore.
You can't tell, right?
iPhone Air.
No, this is not an official image, but the next 3 years, these are mock-ups. Apple is releasing.
They've said something about developing these.
And
right?
the Fold,
Yeah,
iPhone Fold 2026.
Yeah, I love your guys' thoughts on this. So the 3 form factors that they're testing is this year, which we're gonna find out. We're probably gonna miss it. They're doing the iPhone Air, so this will be the thinnest phone ever. And then they have the iPhone Fold 2026, and the 2027 is the 20th anniversary of the first iPhone. It's gonna be all glass. The entire thing is gonna be glass, allegedly. So I would like your guys' thought. Would you guys buy any of these 3 phones?
I feel like didn't Samsung make a folding one? I've never seen one in person, so my assumption is like there's no
I was
market
gonna say
for
that.
it.
I was gonna say that's like the old joke is that the Android phones were often you'll get an Android version, they'll create normally a better version on iPhone. To be fair, so yeah, Samsung definitely had one of these.
They had one. I've seen it. Dude, they're nice.
Pretty helpful.
Do you need that much screen real estate? That's the thing.
Yeah.
You
What
can
do I
watch
need?
double slop reels.
Slop, yeah, double.
One side is
Two-handed
TikTok,
For both
the other side
hemispheres
is
of the
reels.
brain to destroy.
Oh my god, that's hilarious.
No, but I mean, I'll be honest. I might buy the Fold if it comes out next year because I'm still on the 11. Because that's a joke with these phones, right? It's like, I think Lindy Man had it. A tweet. I mean, Lindy Man's
Phone has
always
been
like,
solved, right?
yeah, the phone's been solved. There's nothing else. The only thing that could unsolve the phone is proper AI integration, which is actually where, Pixel comes in. Pixel could do, Bilal's former employee can do nuts to bolts. But if Gemini just teams up with Apple, and we talked about Apple's got their own chips, right? On-device security. I mean, there's a world that could be interesting. I think this one, specifically the Air, is an interesting question. When the MacBook Air came out in 2008, really cool. Do we need an Air though? Do you need an Air phone?
I don't know if I need it for my iPhone, man. I kind of like the size. I think actually when it was getting smaller and smaller, I kind of like the bigger one in the end.
Wait, but yeah, dude, you want the feeling of
I mean,
that
it needs to
phone
be
in your
one
hand,
handed.
right?
Also, someone got. I mean, come on, dude. So,
Yeah.
This is too easy of a pause moment. But yeah, I mean, this. I think I'm on an iPhone. I don't even know what this is. iPhone 14, maybe. I don't. What iPhone are we up to today, Trunk? 17?
Today's 17. Today will be 17.
Damn. Yeah. No, I've been slacking on this as well. I don't think I need a thinner iPhone, but I haven't tried it. So who knows?
No, but I mean, dude, like the added. Well,
It's different to a MacBook, though, right? MacBook, is light because you're carrying it with you on your back. It's different, right? But
exactly.
it's different to an iPhone in your pocket. I don't know.
Jack, thoughts?
I have the iPad and I always have ambition to use the iPad all the time. And I really don't use it as much as I should. So I don't think
There's no reason to get a Fold.
I don't think I would personally use it, yeah. And I like even I convinced myself to get the bigger version of the iPhone, of the like Max or whatever it is, and I always regret it. So I'm like, you're like mangling your thumb to get to the top of the screen instead of just having the normal
true.
size one. That's like,
Yeah, that's a good point.
oh,
Well, they give
Lindy
you-
man.
Or it drops on
As
your
he
face
said.
when you're in bed because you're
Yeah,
trying
you're
to
like
get
sort
really
of like
up there.
angling your thumb up
Yeah,
there.
yeah, you're
I'm
trying to
at least I
balance
can
it.
see like another 40 pixels wide on
Wait,
this thing.
Bilal,
What's
it
the-
sounds like you've dropped it on your face.
100%.
It sounds like you've dropped it on your
I might have
face.
done it last night, to be honest.
Well, I'll give you guys 2 funny things about that is, you know how dumb it is when they even have a keyboard. Remember the keyboard where it splits the screen because your thumbs can't reach around? Like the splitting of the keyboard.
Oh,
I actually will
yeah.
tell you guys, speaking of iPhone, have you guys ever turned on the anti-motion sickness sensor?
Oh, what does that do?
Have you ever read the
Oh,
phone?
like when you're in the car or something.
Yeah. Dude,
Does that help?
it helps, man. It's like little dots on the sides of the screens to center, so it keeps the liquid between your ears that make you feel
nice.
like not nauseous. Google motion sickness iPhone. It's in the accessibility
There's
thing.
so many crazy usability things on
It
the
is.
iPhone that you don't realize they have. It's like even like the back button, you can triple tap it. You can add like an extra thing on there. But yeah, I don't do most of those things. Anything else on that trunk before we wrap it up, mate?
No, that's it. So, apparently there's a new AirPods are out. They're supposed to be really good. They have a heart sensor. And
Nice. They have a heart sensor?
yeah,
in the
dude, it's
AirPod?
crazy, man. Yeah.
That's pretty
So,
sick.
all jokes aside, there's some good stuff.
You're going to get 3 of those in the next year after you put 2 in the washing machine.
Yeah.
Jack,
it's
how
sick,
many
man.
AirPods have you put in the washing machine? And
Oh, dude,
they're
AirPods
good.
have. Dude, I've
Definitely
lost
done.
3. I've officially lost 3.
Oh, is Jack paused again? Oh, Jack might have paused.
Good timing,
Jack's
right?
in the washing machine. All right, let's wrap it up here, boys. That was great chat. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Oh, Jack's back. Jack, how
I'm
many
off
AirPods in the
AirPods,
washing
boys.
machine?
Wired only.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
back.
You
You're
bought
back.
the 2 wired ones, yeah.
Just real quick though, is that just because you prefer them? Health reasons, Bluetooth reasons? Like, what's the reason? I feel like Gen Z are doing that as well.
Mixed. Conspiracy.
Yeah.
A little conspiracy reading.
Just in case, yeah.
They're also cheaper. I've lost so many AirPods
Oh, it's
and put them through the
unbelievable.
wash. These are like $20 a pair, so you just order a few of them, have them lying
Nice.
around everywhere. And I feel like the audio is much better. You know, when you do a phone call, the audio on these is like quite a bit
the
better.
audio,
So,
like the mic is way better than the mic on AirPods, for sure. Like
Dude,
you're saying your
but
audio,
AirPods,
yeah?
I have to say, man,
they're sick.
yeah,
for
but I have to say
listening.
AirPods are a phenomenal invention.
Yeah,
love
they're
them too.
amazing.
Yeah,
Dude.
when you catch the cable, you're like, what am I doing here? It's
Yeah,
worth
yeah.
the degradation of
Yeah.
brain cells.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. No, I'm gonna check out those new AirPods, Trung. I didn't realize
I'm looking
they have a
right now.
heart
Yeah, they
sensor.
look good,
I
dude.
don't know what I'm gonna use it for. Well, I've already got 3 other devices that check my heart for me, so I don't know why I'd need that. But anyway, thanks for being here, everyone. Let us know if you're getting the new iPhone and anything else you thought what we said earlier, and we will see you guys next week. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Peace.